My name is Rez Kabir. I am an actor and a storyteller and a theatre practitioner.
And where were you born?
I was born in Bangladesh in the late 60s, but when I was about 2 I came with my mother here, so I grew up here.
So you're quite British then?
Yes.
And which part of, was it London that you came to?
I came to southeast London. I came to a place, the first place we stopped at, I was told, was Putney. And then we stayed there for a few months. And then, because my father was a doctor, but he was also studying to be, his ambition was to be a neurosurgeon.
Right.
He travelled around different places. Where we could, we'd go with him. Otherwise, we'd stay in one place. From there, we went to a place called Loggerheads, in north of England somewhere near Newcastle under Lyme. We went to Bootle, Southport, where my brother was born, my first brother. And then we went to Bangladesh just before the war, stayed about 6 months, and then 71 we came back, and I've been here ever since.
Right. So, how did you get involved in the South Asian theatre or theatre?
By accident, really. I was interested in the arts very much from when I was a child. My first memory was my father, my grandfather. He was a captain in the Indian Army in 1948. His name was Captain Roman. He was one of 7 brothers, but out of all his family, he was the one that loved music, arts, poetry, and he loved books. And when I was young, the time that I spent with him, and he also came here to spend time with us, I was surrounded by books, music. And my own parents were very much students who loved poetry. They get together and sing. So that was my kind of early memory of arts. When I grew up at school, primary school, junior school, I was always interested in writing stories, and in a way performing, even if it was from the Nativity play, where I played one of the wise men. I'd be so excited. So I would say from an age of about 5 or 6, then 7, I was always interested in performing. Of course, I didn't know that you could study for it and have it as a career. My own path was engineering. I went to Coventry after doing an OND, and I did an HND at Coventry at their Polytechnic or their college, and then enrolled in a honours degree course to be a mechanical production engineer, which I thought, that's going to be substance, something solid as a professional. But soon after that, I re-met a friend of mine called Yogesh, who was in the community wing of Tar Arts, which was a theatre company at that time, who were establishing. So by 83, 84, I decided to take a gap year and come down to London from Warwick and get involved in the theatre here, as a way of also opening up my own experience of who I was and where I came from, because the big tagline with Tara was, "We are an Asian theatre company," and I didn't know what Asian meant. So being there was a very exciting time, because you're in your 20s, you're young, you're meeting other people, you're meeting girls, you're getting a freedom to express yourself, and you're doing it with the camaraderie of other people. So I would say 84 was my beginning of my career.
So what did your parents think of that?
Initially they think, as some parents do, that it's just a hobby and an interest, and eventually I'll find a way of going back to my professional, which will be, solid earner and a good place in your society or community. But I guess I was stubborn and also very much curious, because not only was it exciting to perform and rehearse and be part of, let's say, a family, an artistic family, it was also a great time of changing politics. So to be involved in that took up a lot of our time. I would say there was an initial comment, obstacle, but when I was successful, as with anybody, when you're seen to be popular and successful, your families or your friends say great, and they support you. If you're not earning or seen to be moving and progressing, they assume you're in difficulty and they say, well, maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe you should fall back on something professional. But I never had a problem with that myself. Although it's something that you have to balance. You have to have something, a space within you and your family. You have to have a distinct clarity between what is your personal life, professional life, your career, and then within your own community, whoever that may be. And I think there are times when I was more obsessive about my art, being so involved in it, and other times I was quite happy to be at home and be with my parents. I think my parents now feel that this is the life and profession I've chosen, so they're quite happy as long as I'm not being distracted or being cheated or being taken away from, my family and other commitments.
And you said this was an Asian theatre, Tara Arts, and it was a time when politically and lots of different things. So what did South Asian mean to you? Was it important then?
It was very important because it was a tag that we identified. You have a place of belonging. It's your choice if you want to include yourself in that. As far as I see looking back, and I've been involved in theatre, performing arts, creativity, writing, performing for, I would say, a good part of 20 years more. I've observed it, as a choice, because it's choices that you make which dictate the quality of your life. You have to balance it with what you think is necessary for you, what you think you feel you can make a contribution to the people that you serve, and you hope that it will in some way help to develop them or encourage or inspire them. I've always used storytelling as a means of connecting to both my heritage, where I come from, which I learn, and it's not a static thing, it's a dynamic thing. It changes from generation to generation. But the core thing never changes. The core truth is, I want to be accepted. I want to be recognized for the efforts and hard work I do. I would like to have the freedoms that others enjoy to live a life, to choose and speak and express myself as I wish to. In South Asian, it was a way of beginning that journey. And I think everybody has that journey. Each one, it's different, but there are commonalities. Like there will be a struggle. There will be a time you will be solitary. There will be, that is very important because you're developing yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually. You also, and this is good fortune for me, have an opportunity to work with different professionals, organizations, companies, and you also have times when you're in the limelight because that's what we want. But I have a feeling that South Asia is one of the forms of who I am. It's not everything that I am. It's an important part of who I am because with it, it engages a language, a history, social, traditional and other values and identities. But apart from South Asia, I work right across the board. I will work with all the communities, different generations, because I want to connect as much as possible with the world that I live in. Within me, I have South Asian, I have British, I have my Bengali heritage, and also I think it's something, when I say dynamic, each generation that they come, they kind of practice their perception of what South Asian is. And we're almost in a way like an orchestra, a group of families, an orchestra of different rhythms. So we're very fortunate when those rhythms can come together and play a reasonable orchestra. And I think each voice is important.
So it's interesting you say about generations. So you would say that the British South Asian kind of idea or identity would change from generation to generation or has different?
It changes in some respect. An example I'll give you. If you look at when I say two faces, I mean the public and the personal, the private and what we portray in a public eye is very different from what is personal practice. You can have the Bollywood experience, glamour, glitz, love stories on film, on stage, in dance productions. You also have the Bengali experience, you have the Indian experience. Each of these are rooted not just in the present, but a far distant ancient past, where there were specific disciplines of how to behave, how to treat each other. When you came to see our show yesterday, if you noticed, we called each other by, we respected each other. That's a personal respect we give to each other. We don't always just call each other by name, and it's a very Bengali thing. And it's a very old, traditional thing, but it's something that's developed. Outside, we call each other by names because it's a more British thing, or an English thing. I don't think it matters. But this thing of change is each time someone sees a piece of work, I'm going by the information that I have, and it's an interpretation of what South Asian is. I cannot know everything because I'm going by the experience of my own life. I'm trying to contribute to it and hopefully not destroy that. Destroy that, I mean the good part of it. The good part of it that serves us. The good part of it that helps present and future generations in some way. Sometimes it may not. It may just be entertainment. It may just be a way of just having a good time. And that's perfectly acceptable. The next generation, let's say my younger brothers and sisters or my own children, they see it in a very different way. They have had a different experience of it. Their value on what is it to be a Bengali as British is perhaps very, very different. So in that sense, they may not think of a Bengali song that I might like in the same way. Now, does that mean they're being disrespectful to what South Asian is? No. They just have a different experience on their journey.
So you talk about your Bengali experience. There are other South Asian experiences as well, of course. Do you think there's a common thread amongst the whole South Asian community that unites them in some way?
I think for certain generations, yes. If we go back, let's say, 300 to 400 years, we were the colonized when we were in India. So that has a certain take on the way that we will value ourselves and how we think of, let's say, the colonizers, whoever they may be. In India, it was the Portuguese, the Dutch, the British, to some extent the French, but the French not so much. The reason that was important, but each time that, and obviously the Mughals when they came, each time we had visitors in India, they left something to us. They contributed something, good and bad. They left something. They changed us in the way that we ate, behaved towards each other, the religions we practice. So they became the precursors of our present-day traditions and cultures and how we view each other. Then we have the modern experience. Since the British left, we had to somehow relearn or pick up the pieces and learn ourselves to be a nation, whether it was India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and within there you have the regional experiences, Punjab, the Gujarati experience, the South Asian, Southeast Asian. And I only speak of Bengali because the present work that I do is connected and rooted in Bengali theatre.
Right. And so your experience, how did that kind of impact on your own artistic journey, which I mean your personal one really, because you are still an individual, even though you're part of the Bengali community. How did that kind of shape your own artistic journey? How did you find your way?
It was not something that I questioned in the sense, am I going it the right way or the wrong way? I would pick something that I enjoyed, so it was a personal selective choice, and that I could do, because obviously certain things physically and mentally I'm not good at. If you noticed the work yesterday that we did a version of Romeo and Juliet. It was in the ground floor stage at the Rich Mix, which is not really a theatre space, but it's a simple show. The props we use are things that are employed in the show. It doesn't have a massive set. In terms of production, it's a low cost. And I like those kind of things. It also meant that after I left Tara in the 90s, I steered myself towards thinking that I could do a personal career myself, as a single storyteller or a performer and actor. So most of my work has been on recommendation, some through my agent, or people who say, well, this is going on. For me, it was always planting a seed. If I met someone like I meet yourself, we'll talk about something, commonalities, a challenge, something that we feel that is important to us or could work in the future. So all these seeds that we plant, we don't know how they will grow. But at some point, somebody would call me and say, oh, Rez, I spoke to you in such and such time about this film or play or story. Can we meet and talk? So that's how my work came. The choices I made was something that I could do myself, so I could write stories. I love writing stories. Maybe I don't know if I like writing, because that's something you have to go and practice at. But I feel I'm a reasonable story writer, short stories. So I was inspired by people like Manto, Premchand. I like the short stories of, you know, the classical fairy tales like Grimm and all the others. What inspired me with all these different stories from around the world and from my own cultures, they had a common thread. They were imparting something of an educational value, a moral tale, or an entertaining. They also reflected the times that they emerged from, and that the stories can change. They can change to suit the times. So I've had to basically input my own personality and my own choices into the field and just build relationships. You build relationships with different people. You let them know who you're about, the things that you're interested in, and you try and find out about them. And that's not just about art and organisations. It's all the different regional places that I've had the good fortune to go to, whether it's Southampton, in Scotland, Wales, or when I've gone abroad to Ireland or Belgium or Australia. The thing is, the similarity is that everyone has a story. And it's not just fairy tales, everyday stories. When you're on a phone and you're talking to someone, well, I met so-and-so, and did you hear about... That's a story. That story is a reflection of, we're constantly trying to find, who are we? Where did we come from? Where are we now? Where are we going? Are we satisfied with the needs that we have? Is there something that threatens us? How do we cope with that? So stories is the central structure of how I operated, and that helped me to go and work in films, theatre, TV and radio.
So you're always very conscious of your audiences, especially as a storyteller. You're speaking to them directly. Are you very conscious of them, who they are? Do you target an audience? Do you look for a particular audience to perform to?
It's very important who my audiences are. In general, it's everyone. But depending on the project and where I am, for example, tomorrow I'm going to go to Museum of Docklands. I work in the family groups as well as the education groups. So tomorrow is going to be a 40-minute story of Abdul Mir, who's a Victorian sailor from India. And it's kind of a monologue that's been written for me and I've developed. Schools and colleges come in, I do the story and do a little workshop. Very interactive. Now that age range is, say, maybe 6, 7 years old to 11. But when I have my own personal projects, that will be, like I'm doing something for Hardyal, it's over at Cranford. It'll be family audiences in a school community centre. So that could be anybody. Depending on the project, I have no restrictions to who comes and sees my shows because they are accessible to everyone. They may have elements of Bengali or some other languages and scenarios and settings, but I'm not saying to someone, you must see the world through my eyes. I'm sharing with the interactive. That means I will say to people, come up and become a character. Suggest an ending to the story. Tell me, if this story was left unended, how would you end it? Because I want to involve my audience directly, when they can. Because other times it might be a performance. We might just talk about it afterwards. But it's very informal. There's no curtain. And the curtain in theatre or in storytelling was important to provide a kind of distinction between us and them, the viewer, the observer, and the performer. But in mine, yes, there is that divide, but that divide is invisible. You can break it whenever you... Obviously, I don't want people to come in and say, "Wait, what's going on?" and heckle me. Although you get that and you have to cope with it. So my audiences are everyone, but at different projects it might be a specific group.
And so you link all your stories with kind of the everyday lives of people, don't you?
Yes.
And you make that of value as a result. Okay, but you do that through a South Asian prism?
It can be both, it depends. I mean, for example, in about 5-6 years ago, I and a couple of other colleagues, we began a company called Tamarind Theatre. I had a 3-month gap between projects. And I'd always been complaining, you know, I'm getting to the age, I'd really like to contribute and teach. And so my friends were saying, look, well, why don't you just start a company? So it wasn't just on my own, but I was sort of one of 3 who established Tamarind Theatre Company. Still is, and as it was when we formed it, was we wanted storytelling as a medium that was rooted in Bengal, but was meeting the needs of a heritage that was being built by generations in Britain. They may or may not have a connection to India or Southeast Asia, but they also have a story that they're experiencing now. And in that story, they may not have kings and queens and fairies and monsters or amazing fantastical characters. They may have their dad works in a shop or in a restaurant. The mum is a part-time job and goes shopping, or the sister wants to be a scientist, or the brother, the son. So they choose roles that they identify with. And in my stories, we'd have different characters. So the first story we did for Tamarind was Purnima. Purnima means the full moon in Bengali. It was a story about a mother and daughter. So as a contemporary context, it was how do mothers or parents, especially mothers, relate to their daughters? What is it like for both of them as one generation grows up and the other one comes to term? Yes, it was set in a folk form, that it was in some other country. It didn't matter whether it was Bengal, but it was set in some other country. But the things within the story was extremely contemporary. Like, for example, they go on a horse, they're riding on their horse. They stop in a market, they want to sell their horses. So we asked the young people, if they sold the horses at £15 each, how much money would they make? Okay?
Yeah.
So we would always weave in things that are relatable and connect to the audience and young people.
Okay, so you actually have made a positive change in your own life, in your own career choice, and as a result, changed theatre.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I hope so.
That's great. So, how do you feel that this, you've just connected all these kind of the present day aesthetics and stories into a tradition, and then reinvented this tradition?
Yes.
Yeah. So, where do you see yourself going from here? How do you further develop this?
It's an interesting question. In terms of the first story I ever did as a public performer, which was in a tree ceremony in Stepney. It was a family event. So you always have to look at what that activity is. Who are the people involved? What are the needs they want? I'm interacting with that and coming into that and changing that dynamic. And for me, it's not really that much different to what I do now. A person is the storyteller. The storyteller is the traditional form of what the internet is today. We are like an app that connects people. You can download me, you can enjoy the stories I have, but you can also interact with me. And if you want to take it up further, be inspired. Start writing stories yourself, tell your own stories to whatever you want, and enjoy it for whatever it is for you. So if you want to become a professional, great. Come and see me or see the friends I have and become a storyteller or a theatre practitioner or a creative artist. Because apart from the stories I did, in the tree ceremony, it was, I told the stories to a hall full of parents. They loved it. I was so terrified, but I enjoyed that kind of challenge. You know, here there's nothing to hide. It's just me and these people. They're waiting for me to do something with them and involve them. So I acknowledge. I try and respect them. But at the same time, just be normal. You know, At the end, we're just you and I, flesh and blood, that's all. The development in the years since then is that I may use a bit more sophistication, able to use more languages, different forms, dance, movement, puppetry, because I'm a trained puppeteer with Little Angel Theatre. I worked with them. I think since leaving Tara, I had what I would call steady job for a few years. I was a kitchen manager for a kitchen company. We used to sell white goods and sell white goods. I worked as a telephone operator at Harrods for 5 years. And in between, I was doing my storytelling or acting in a play, doing films, or making up my own projects with people that I knew in the industry. And what happened was, at the end of the kitchen company decided to make us redundant, basically. And then at that point, 2005 or 2007, I said to myself, I want to go in at full time and devote myself to the work that I do, and that's what I've been doing since. But in terms of where I've been affecting and contributing in the East End, I've been here about 12 years. So I've worked in the schools, in the theatres, and also unorthodox venues, like working in the melas and festivals in the open air. So I will go to wherever I'm asked to do and wherever I think I can make a positive contribution. In terms of the styles, what's helped me is working in theatre. The things that I learn and discover in that experience, I can put into my stories. At the same time, you meet ordinary people. Like in Mayflower School, I had a workshop looking at Bengali drama with a group of mums. What they wanted was to get a qualification through a workshop to help them in childminding or healthcare to get a job. So we tried to work out with the council and the project coordinators, how can we do that? How can we use storytelling as a medium to bring their own thoughts and views and feelings, look at drama, and out of that, what they're doing is it's helping them to bring out their own traumas, experiences, and their desires and dreams. Because that's what we want. We want to be able to express the condition that we're in. I know it sounds very psychological. I'm not trying to make it psychological. I'm trying to explain because you'd understand. I think I connected to my grandfather because I enjoyed the love he gave me. I had it both from my parents, but when my father was away studying, becoming a doctor and a surgeon, he didn't become a surgeon, he settled at GP because we had more brothers and sisters. He had more responsibility, couldn't give his own personal time to himself, so he said, all right, I'm going to be a GP. The challenge I had was I'm the eldest in my family. I have 2 brothers and a sister, and they're all settled and married in different ways. How do I make a living, keep the responsibility of my family, in some way keep a connection to my community and immediate, large extended family, but at the same time, I don't want to hide away who I am, what I am. I want to go out into the world and find out as much as possible from the world. It could be at the National Theatre, it could be at the Queen Elizabeth Hall, it could be at Edinburgh Festival, it could be in a school. I have to give it the same respect and professionality because people will go away and say, that's South Asian art, that's Rez the man, or that's a Bengali, or that's a good artistic person, because that impact, you don't know what that experience could do to the other person. So you always have a responsibility both to yourself, the history and the tradition, culture you come from, whatever that is from your choice, and that day and time you spend with a group or an individual, you don't know what that will lead to. It's going back to the idea of the seeds. You implant something, but it's a two-way thing. They might, and they do, inspire me. I remember going to, I was doing a story with Museum of London, or Docklands, about Pocahontas. So I had to go and research it. You always have to research and find out, either from books and things or internet. Then you have to, if you can find people, you research from there. And then I had done the story. A lady had seen me do the stories because it was for families. And she lived in Plymouth. And she sent me a thank you card, an English lady. And she sent me a thank you card, and she sent me a poem. And she said there was a legend in Plymouth, Plymouth, that Pocahontas had landed there and taken a carriage and driven all the way to London. to get into the court, I don't know, James I. And then soon after, within the year, she gave birth and she died in Gravesend. And there's an unmarked grave there saying that's where Pocahontas died. And that's why it's known as Gravesend, or some other story. But it's finding that line between which is real, which is legend, which is myth, which is just a folk story that is popularized because it helps us understand in some way. Now, today, if you want to connect it, it's the same. We have so many different political parties. We have organizations, companies that are wanting our attention. They want us to buy. They want us to endorse something. At the same time, we have our commitments to our families and our larger community. And also, there's a pressure on the artist to become some sort of celebrity or artist. I've never seen myself as a celebrity artist, but I do realize there is a responsibility that you're in the public eye. So what you do has an impact to the person. It could be someone from your own community. It could be somewhere, nowadays with all the internet, it could be somewhere on the other side of the world. And they make a judgment what is South Asian arts or South Asian individual.
Great. So to finish up, what would you say is your biggest, greatest memory of any of your work? Which one do you connect most with, or do you always look for the new one?
I would say the experiences I've had, I have so many and I'm very fortunate. The future ones are the ones I look for, in the sense that anything that I'm working at the moment are the most exciting. But in the past, the work has been good because of the people that I've worked with. And each one is an exciting thing because it helps me to find another part of me that I didn't know, or find out about the people I'm working with that I hadn't shared with before. Someone I worked with on that Romeo and Juliet, I didn't know that they were a choreographer. Someone else, Greta, who played Juliet, she has an Icelandic spouse, and we were talking about languages. So and then she'd ask me, what's your family, what's your background? And when I started to relate to it, she said, oh, I didn't know that. Now, what does that do for me? It helps me to understand a little bit more. And if I can understand a bit more, maybe I could be a bit better. I mean, there were so many. I mean, one of the biggest ones was when we went to Australia and New Zealand. We went to the Youth Theatre Festival, and I was a little bit more than youth, with Tara actually, and we took Government Inspector. It was a circus version. I played the postmaster, and the set was a trunk, a big metal trunk, and within the metal trunk were our costumes, our set, everything. And we toured around 2 weeks in Melbourne. We went into the universities and did workshops. I touched the Pacific Ocean with my feet. We drove through mountains where there was snow on one side, desert on the other. Then went to New Zealand, from South Island to North Island, stopped off at various places. Rotorua, where there was the geysers. And at Rotorua, when we performed our show, the theatre company there, all the people who invited us, they gave us all a present of a glass, and they'd engraved, "You came for the festival, thank you so much." So those things are a good memory. Then there was the Edinburgh Film Festival, where we did, I did a play that was originally rooted in Sudan, about the Sudanese independence movement. And the story I'm always playing baddies, recently I'm playing baddies. In Unsung, which is an adaptation of a Tagore play but modernised to today, I'm playing this dominating brother. In Romeo and Juliet, I played this terrible Tybalt, although he gets killed. But that's probably partly because of the way I physically am, and people think I'd be good for it, and also my voice, which I'm very fortunate with. But the other one, it was called Burst. In Burst, everything came out of the trunk. The trunk was sent by someone who'd gone to London in the 20s and had the experiences here. He'd met Marcus Garvey, he had lots of girlfriends, he met all the bright young things, but unfortunately he killed his wife. Some of it was true to the story. I think he was originally killed in the research material we had, and that was written by Omar Al-Khayri and co-written by Tanya Singh, who's a film director. And we took it there. We had like half an hour run around. You had to go into the zoo theatre space, set up the show, do the show, half an hour, put it all apart, and then the next company would come in. But it was a really, really good experience because it's challenging you physically. You find the time to enjoy yourself. You see so many different companies. You realise you're a drop in that ocean and you're no different from anybody else. So that was a good memory. And I mean, this year I've been so fortunate. I've worked, last year I did Londony, which was by Gurpreet Bhatti. That was a very nice central role using Tagore's poetry, performing in English, learning how to do the sounds and movements. That was a beautiful show to do. This year we did Devdas as a stage version. I had two characters, a downbeat 60s pop musician, you know, flower power and all that. That was very exciting to do. And I also played a character who's a more subservient servant role. And then recently Unsung, which I've mentioned to you before, and now Romeo and Juliet, and hopefully that will go on tour. So all these are very, very exciting, not just for the acting and the chance I get and the adrenaline rush I get, but also because you work with respected people and it gives you so much more for the future.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.